In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build this gate that goes on the 3rd generation Missy Trap that the retrievers are now using. This is a view of the gate on the floor, obviously, from the inside of the trap. So here you see the latches that click shut when the gate is closed, keeping the dog in. At the very bottom, we've attached this 3/8 inch rebar. It's 34 inches wide, 3/8 of an inch in diameter. We've attached it to the very bottom of the trap using a couple of hose clamps on either side of this vertical bar. And shoring up that connection is some JB Weld steel stick, which is an epoxy putty, and it dries very, very hard. So this bar is on there really permanently. This provides stability and a very little threshold, virtually nothing, for the dog to step over. Okay, I see my animals are going to try to help, so that's Rupert and Chaz is over there supervising. So let's hope they don't get in too much of the way. But anyway, working our way up, this is the frame part of the panel, and this is the gate part of the panel, and we will assemble those separately before we put them together. This panel is 34 inches wide and the full 60-inch tall, and we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. So looking at the parts and tools that you're going to need, you are going to need 3 of these gate latches. This is called an automatic gate latch. This is the one we've used on all of our traps, made by National Hardware. You're going to need some 3/4 inch number 8 wood screws. You will need 3 door hinges. These are regular door hinges, 3.5 inches tall. Don't get them any taller than that. You will need a hammer. You'll need fence staples, 1-inch fence staples. This is the length that we found works the best with the size of board that we're using. You'll need a measuring tape and a hammer. You'll need a drill. It helps to have 2 drills so that you can leave 2 different bits on them. You're going to need a Phillips bit on one and an 1/8 inch drill bit on the other. Or if you don't have 2 drills, you'll have to switch back and forth. Strongly recommended earplugs. You'll be doing a lot of hammering, and it can get painful. You'll also need a spade bit. This one is 7 1/8 inch in diameter for cutting a hole. You will need a Dremel with a heavy-duty grinding wheel. That comes in really handy. You'll also need a couple of nylon ties for testing the gate. And you'll want to have the rest of your panels up and ready to go for testing the gate. And then lastly, if you make a mistake with the fence staples, you can pull them out with this tool, which I believe is called a nipper, or nippers. Now let's talk about the boards that you're going to need. Basically, you can get away with 2 boards. These are 1x4 common pine. One of them is 10 feet long, one of them is 8 feet long. And what you want to do is cut of course these are pre-painted, and I think that's smart to do, so go ahead and paint your boards ahead of time. And then you will cut the 8-foot board in half, so you end up with 2 48-inch boards. Then you cut 50 inches off of the 10-foot board, 2 50-inch lengths. And that will leave you with a small piece like that, which we are going to end up cutting to an exact size. And I'll show you what I mean when we get there. But basically, that's a really efficient use of boards because you only need to buy 2 boards. Here is our bare panel that we're going to be working with. Now this is welded wire livestock paneling. The full panel, when you buy it, hopefully you can get the same thing that we've gotten here, but it comes in a 16-foot long by 60-inch tall size, and we have cut these panels down to width. Most of the panels on the trap will be 36 inches wide, but the gate panel is 34 inches wide. It just works better to have 2 squares here on this side and 2 squares on that side, which works out to be a 34-inch width panel. So looking at how this is cut, you will start out with 2 full rows on top, and then you'll begin the cutting out the grid for the gate opening. So on the 3rd row, you begin to make your cut, and you cut this opening all the way down on both sides. Now when you get on this side, when you get 3 down, let's see if I can back up enough, 1, 2, 3, on your 4th and 5th rows, you will cut an insert here. So you'll cut this bar, and this bar, and that will allow an insert for the gate spring. So we'll attach a spring here that pulls the gate closed. Then on the bottom, as I showed you before, we've attached this rebar and holding it on with the hose clamp and the steel stick. The rebar is 34 inches long, just like the width of the panel. And this will give your trap rigidity. You really need this bar, so don't fail to put that on. Now this is what the gate itself looks like. This one is cut a little differently. This one is 24 inches wide, and let's see, I believe we've cut off 2 full rows off the top. Let me just double check this measurement here. Yeah, it's at 52 inches tall, which means there were 2 rows at the top that we cut off to get to this height. So once you've got your basic rectangle cut out and sized properly, then you start cutting the inserts. On this side, on the left, is the inserts for the latches. And here you'll come down 2 full rows and then cut an insert on row number 3. And then you'll come down, let's see, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On number 7, you'll cut another insert. And then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, another insert. And as I said before, these are all latches. Okay? On the other side are our hinges. And here we have inserts cut as well. We've put a hinge on the very bottom of the gate on the right. So that's row number 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So directly across from that latch is another hinge. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is another hinge up at the top. So you'll want to make sure you've got your panels cut, and then we can begin assembling. All right, now we're going to put the boards onto this frame. Make sure your frame has the insert for the spring on the left. First of all, I am wearing this on my head, the camera on my head, and I apologize if sometimes the camera goes out of view of what I'm doing. So sorry about that. I can't really see what it's getting, but I'll do my best. So the first thing we want to do is to slide one of the 50-inch boards. Make sure you pick up a 50-inch board, and we're going to put it right underneath the left side of the frame. Now this board will go pretty much flush with this inside edge, okay? Don't get it too close over here. You want this gaps because that's where you're going to put your spring clips to attach to the next panel over. In terms of height, we need to get a measurement right now because this is a fairly critical step right here. It determines how much gap we're going to have underneath the door. So, and that's important because if you're going to be catching small dogs along with your big dogs, you don't want them to be able to escape underneath the door. So we typically do about 3 inches, and that's from the bottom of this panel here, this board here, which will be even with the bottom of the gate. That's why this is significant. But I'm looking at about 3 inches, okay? And that's going to put it 3 inches from the bottom of the board to the top of the rebar. Okay, so there's our 3 inches on that side. And then just make sure that this is flush and not extending beyond this wire. Now you will find as you work with these wire panels that these are anything but precise. These sometimes bow out and in and all which ways, but do the best you can. But we want to make sure nothing extends beyond here, because this is where the gate will be closing. Then we start attaching the fence staples. I'm going to go ahead and do this side first, and then the other side over here we're going to do separately. Now, what we discovered after making a number of these gates is that if we don't pre-drill our holes, we end up splitting these boards, and it's kind of a pain. So take a few extra minutes and pre-drill the holes. So basically I've got this 1/8 inch bit in here, and I'm going to just alternate. I'm under this bar right here, and I'm going to go here, and then the next one up I'm going to go on top of the bar, right in that corner. So when you start attaching, you will see by alternating you'll get one here and one here and so on. It's really wise at this stage. You can see that I accidentally moved that a little bit. It's really wise to attach one staple here on this end, and then to go all the way up to the other end and attach another staple so that the board doesn't slide around. I'm just going to double check this measurement. That looks fine. So I'm going to start hammering these in. Now, you should probably put one right here. If you try to go too close here, you'll definitely split. So I'm just going to put one at the very bottom crossways, and I'm going to drill both holes for this one. And you can see that staple is a little bit wide, so we can kind of close it up a little. There we go. A little bit more. All right. All right, that did not split, so I'm happy about that. I'm going to go ahead and put this one in. I'm checking the top to make sure that didn't drift. That looks good. Put this one in, and then I'll move to the top. I'm not going to make you watch every last staple, don't worry. But I did kind of want to get you started on how to keep these boards in place while you're working on it. So see, you can see this one slid out of place, and that's why we want to make sure we get them lined up and anchored down here before we do all the rest of the staples. All right, now that that board is secured into place, we can just go drill. Let's see, we're on the top here, so we'll go the drill here, and then here on top of that bar, and so on all the way up. Okay, now we've got this left side attached. Let's turn our attention to the right side. The right side is done slightly differently. We will want to have the same 3 inches over here, so let's do that first. As you can see, I've got a little bit on the left sticking out right here. That's intentional. So let's finish this measurement, and I'll explain what we're doing here. There's our 3 inches. I am actually going to go ahead and anchor this, and then I'll worry about the rest of it up there in a second. But let me just get this anchored down. Now, since we're so close to the bottom of the board, this is really a danger area for splitting. I am going to drill, let's see, Decisions. Probably here. And both sides, because this is such a delicate area. And hope for the best. Okay, hold our breath a little bit here. No splitting. Okay, that looks good. Now what we want is no less than 25 inches across. Here I didn't measure that, but I've done enough of these to know that that's about how much board you see sticking out there from the left side here to get 25 inches. 25 inches is the minimum that you want from where this outside bar sticks out to where this board, where the edge of the board is. So now that I've got that anchored into place, I'm going to take a measurement up on the other side. Come in a little bit more. It's actually a little more than 25 inches. Let's see, 25, almost 25 3/8 compared to this side at the bottom, which is 25 1/4. Close enough for this, for what we're going to do. And I suspect that this isn't completely straight. The wire mesh isn't completely straight, but that will be fine. So let's go ahead and attach this. Actually, I can push this in a little bit. What did I say? 25 1/4. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. All right. Now we just do the same thing on this side. Drill and pray that it doesn't split. That looks good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and attach the rest of the staples all the way up and down this this side of the right side of the frame, and then come back. Okay, that is all we're going to do for now on the frame. So the next thing we need to do is to grab our gate and put that down on the ground so we can start working on it. Now, when you're working with the gate, you want to make sure that the insert is on your bottom right. This is the hinge insert, okay? Now we take our 48-inch boards and we slide them underneath. And these will come flush to the bottom of the panel right here. And they will be flush side to side as well. So just get that in there like that. And then I'll probably want to do the same thing, put in the anchor at the bottom. And then work up to the top, or then put another anchor at the top and then fill in the middle. So we're going to do the same thing with this board that we did on the other board. So I'm just going to attach these two boards and then I'll come back for the next step. I should mention, when you come to a big knot and you need to put a staple in there, I would suggest avoiding that. It's super hard and you could crack the wood. So do the best you can to work around it. Like instead of putting it right here smack in the middle of this knot, I'm going to just move it up so that it's more up here. And I might even drill 2 holes just to be on the safe side. So avoid the knots if you can. Okay, now I've got both of these boards attached to the sides of the gate. And if you remember that short piece of wood that we cut off of the 10-foot board, this is where this comes into play. This will be our bottom of the gate panel, of the gate itself, sorry. Now, you could argue that you don't need this, and if you don't want to put it on, I think that's fine. The reason I like it is because it provides this sort of visual barrier to the bottom of the gate. Otherwise, it would look like this, and dogs might be tempted to try to go underneath. I just like to have this solid-looking thing to discourage any dogs that might try to, escape under here. So what we do is, since these measurements are going to vary from gate to gate because of the geometry of how these wire panels are put together, since they're not precise, I just measure when we get there. So I'm going to throw this underneath and try to get it as flush as possible. It's not terribly square, but we'll do the best we can here. That's looking okay. So once that's lined up and tight in between those 2 sides, then I can just score, and since I've got this pre-painted, it makes it really easy to see. So that's where we want our cut. Now I'll just take this over to the chop saw. Now that we've got this cut to fit, we just slide it into place, line it up with the other boards, and then do the drill and hammer. This board, for whatever reason, I guess because we're so close to the edge here where we're putting these staples, I like to go here, 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 and so on. I drill holes for both sides of the staples and not just one, so that this doesn't split. Okay, here you can see I did not take my own advice, and I tried to get a staple in where there's a knot right here. I've got one up here now to take its place, but I thought I would use this opportunity to show you how to remove a staple if you accidentally do something like this. I don't think that crack is going to be fatal, so I hope when I pull this thing out, it will just kind of close back up again and not be a problem for us. But basically the nippers, you just use it to grab hold of the staple and then rock it, push it back on its curve, the curved head of it, and you can see that it pulls right out. So let's see. I think that will be okay. It's not cracked all the way to the edges, so it's not pretty, but it will still work. Now we're going to work on attaching the gate to the gate panel. I've got the gate panel on the ground here on the floor, and you can see that I flipped it over from where we were working on it before. So now we've got the smooth side of the boards facing up. I'm going to do the opposite though with the gate panel, and I'm going to set it right down in the middle with the nail side up. This goes right up like that, and here's where our measurement comes into play, because we want to make sure we hang the gate the 3 inches that we decided we wanted to do. So I'm going to measure here. Needs to go up just a titch. And right there. I'm not going to fine tune that just yet because I wanted to show you one thing. We're going to be attaching hinges to this side. Now, I don't know if you can see this difference in height, but because this panel is raised up a little bit, it's going to be very difficult to attach hinges because you really want it to be on the same plane. So what you can do is throw a board under there. All right, I've got that board underneath here, and you can see it's a lot easier to flatten this out, and so we can screw these in. Now, the screws I'm using are 3/4 inch screws that came with the hinge. And I'm going to live dangerously here and not drill any pilot holes. If I start to crack the board, then I'll have to reconsider that idea, but let's see how we do. I want to go directly into the holes that are diagonal. So I'm going to start here at the top right. And then do the bottom left. Oops. And that way we can keep it straight. And just the most important part is that this barrel is in the middle. Oh, I should have told you, these hinges have a pin through them, and so I like to keep the top of the pin at the top of the hinge and not down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of these. So far so good on the cracking, which kind of speeds things up a bit. All right, there's one hinge. Two more hinges up at the top, middle and top. I believe I will go do the top next, so that way I can adjust the straightness of the door. It looks like I need to pull it in a little bit to the right there before I attach the hinge. And then I'll do the middle hinge, and we'll go on to the next step. Now it's time to attach the latches. The latches do have a top and a bottom. You want this handle to be up on the top. And they will go on this board on the side. Okay. The other piece of this is the strike bar. Now, you might recall that we extended this board out a little bit, and this is the reason why, so that this piece of the latch could be as far that way as possible, so that this strike bar could reach. Otherwise, it would have been out here somewhere. So we put this board out a little bit to extend the reach of this thing, and now it's time to attach the latch and the strike bar. These are the screws that came with the latch. They are too long for these boards. They'll poke out the other side, so we are going to be using number 8 3/4 inch wood screws instead. So I see right now that I'm on top of this knot, which I do not like, so I'm going to pre-drill the holes. But let's work, first of all, let's work on this other side, which looks to be fine. So we grab our screws, and we're just kind of equidistant in the middle of that insert over on the other side, and we just start putting them in, and again hope it doesn't crack. So far so good. Oh, I can see there's a crack right there on this board because it was used before, and I think if I screw that in, that'll just make it worse. So I am going to drill that hole there. Try to miss that crack. Let's see how we do. Please don't crack. Good. All right, there's that piece. Now what we want to do is you want to settle this strike bar right in the V. You can see there's a kind of a V shape where this settles naturally. So you want to get it right in there and drill your hole for the screw, and start on that outside one first. So, oops, wrong drill. So it's going to be something like this. That's really hard. right in that knot. And we're going to attach this first before we drill the other one, and I'll explain why in just a second. All right, now you see we can pivot this a little bit like that. And what we want to do when we put that last screw in, we want to hold this bar up to the top as much as we can, okay? Because what happens is when these gates go upright and there's weight on those hinges, it actually sags a little bit. The gate sags a little bit. And sometimes if you don't compensate a little bit, your bar could be striking down here instead of in the middle. So we just like to shove that up as far to the top as we can get it before we put in that last screw. So holding it up there, I'm not going to pre-drill this one. I hope for the best. Uh-oh. What's happening? It is cracking. That's so not good. So much for shortcuts. All right. Work with me here, piece of wood. Uh-oh. All right, that's so not good. So what we're going to do here, we're going to grab one of these longer screws and hope that a beefier screw will, I'm not sure what happened there, but it didn't grab. So I'm just going to use this. There's a piece of wood underneath there. I don't want to go into that, so I'm going to lift this up. There, that's holding. All right, so that was a little complicated, but I think we're good. So, 2 more latches to do exactly the same way. Hopefully we won't have those complications, and we'll be able to move quickly along. Now, before we leave this view, I did want to point out, you know, I spent a lot of time talking about how to get this hinge lined up in the gap here. I do want to point out also that nothing on this side should be striking this board. And like I said before, these panels can bow in and out, and so it may not be completely straight. You want to make sure that, like here's a piece that bows out, you want to make sure that that doesn't get too close to this board. And you do that by adjusting, you know, how the gate sits side to side. But hopefully if you've done the 25-inch or 25-and-a-quarter-inch spacing here, you won't have that issue. I totally forgot to tell you that you are going to need a gate spring like this. Sorry I didn't have that up at the beginning of the video. But this is an 11-inch gate spring, also made by National Hardware. We're going to be attaching it right here. But first we're going to see how well this gate swings without it. So I've got this attached to my trap loosely. I'm going to go ahead and finish attaching it here with our quick clips, just so it doesn't fall over on us. And there are no clips on that side. Beg, borrow, and steal from this side. All right, that's probably going to suffice for our purposes here. Now, 2 things. Remember when I told you you needed a couple of quick ties? This is why. And the second thing is, don't let the height of this trap confuse you. This trap has been cut down a row. Okay, this is my trap, and I have a rather small SUV, so I cut it down so it fits better in my car. your trap, if you haven't made any customizations like that, your trap should come up even with this gate panel. So we're going to take the nylon tie and we're going to attach the top of the gate panel to the next panel over so that it's nice and rigid up here at the top. The less these gates move around, the more reliable they will be. The other issue here in this room is with this concrete floor. It does move around a bit. There's no way to stake it down, obviously. So in the field, you will be able to stake it. You should stake it so that it's as solid feeling as it can be. The other thing to know about when you're putting this up is try to get it to be as straight up and down as possible. And here it appears like it might be leaning a little bit. That looks better to me. All right. So when you go inside, the way to do this is to reach in and undo the bottom latch and hold the gate open with your knee a little bit, and then undo the middle latch, also holding that open, and then the top. And then you can walk right in. And so what we're going to do here is to slam the gate, and I'm going to listen and try to hear a single slam and not a ricocheting of individual latches. So let's see what it sounds like. That sounded pretty good. Let's try that again. Yeah, you can see, you know what, I'm going to nylon tie that bottom together because I just saw it slide, and that is not helping our testing. So let's do this. You may also want to do this in the field, and I would definitely recommend doing the top in the field when you deploy these traps. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm getting on camera at this view, so sorry if you can't see. All right. Now we'll just throw this on here. All right, let's try this again. It feels more secure. That sounded great. I like the sound of that. So, next thing we do then is attach our spring, and I'm going to turn this off while I open it up. All right, here is the spring, and it's going to go like this. Now when you read the instructions on the package, it says that you should try to get this spring as vertical as possible. So we're going to put it right up about in there. And I also know from doing a lot of these that if I slide it down under that bar right here, I will not as likely to hit something on the other side with the screws. So let's see. I'm feeling the back of it here. It looks like it's if I go right there, it won't hit that bar on the other side of the wood. The screw, I mean. So that's where I want to put it. And I'm going to, I'm going to dimple it so I can drill pilot holes. Let's get that other measurement again here. I think it's right there. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I'm going to want this thing more centered. And we might hit that bar, but you know what? It's more important that this thing doesn't stress this board too much. I didn't want it that close to the edge, so we're going to put it right there. Now, these screws will protrude, but that's okay. This is a lot of stress on this spring, and I want to use the beefy kind of screws that came with the spring, like that, rather than a smaller screw that might not protrude. So we'll just deal with it. There is a top and bottom to the spring. Make sure you get the top on top. You can see it's embossed there. It also has this little label on it. I might have gone out of your view. Sorry about that. I'm just attaching this other screw. And the last one. Well, that's kind of a hot mess right there, isn't it? The screw just going to hit that bar. Let's see if we can get past it. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, that's on there, so let's see what kind of a swing we get. We get some kind of spring there. So when you're using a rate tripper with this trap, and it's designed to be used with a rate tripper, your gate is going to come back like this. Your target plate's going to be here where my hand is, and here's the magnet. Actually, we can just put this here to better illustrate how this works. So I don't think there's any power going to it, right? There's not. But were there power, this would attach right there. And so the gate would be open right about here. So let's see how it swings. Not bad. Not bad at all. But we can get a little more snap to it if we attach that bungee. So I'm going to test it with that. Now these springs, the instructions say that you can tighten this nut on top and get more torque on the spring, but I've not had a lot of luck with that. And also we have broken one of these by putting too much tension on it. So use the bungee, but don't go crazy with it. Stretch it out about like so. Now let's hope that doesn't break. Always carry an extra bungee with you in your bag when you go trapping, just in case. All right, here goes. It's creaking. I'm going to get out of the way. And that is decisive. I think we just caught a dog. So the last thing we're going to do here, last couple of things we're going to do, is I'm going to drill a hole right here to put a stake in. Normally you would put a stake right here. I like to stake it down the closest to the action. So this is where the latch is, and I don't want this gate moving at all. So I'd rather have it right here along this vertical axis to stabilize it right here. But there will be times when you may not be able to get a stake in the ground, like all the way down. Maybe it's an 8-inch stake and you can't get it down because the ground is too hard. It's frozen or rocky or whatever. If I put a hole here, you'll be able to get at least some of the stake into the ground and have something to anchor it to right here. So I'm going to use a 7-inch spade bit and just drill a hole right where I want the stake to go. Now on this side, I would like to put a stake right here, put a hole right here, but there's a hinge on the other side of that. So I could do one of two things. I could put it over here, it's getting a little close to the edge, or I could drill a partial hole, not go all the way through, so you could kind of, you know, anchor it like that. So I think that might be what I want to do. So I'm going to go in at a little angle here. This is not going to look pretty, but it will be functional. That should be enough to catch the head of a stake there. So, two more things to do, and one involves grinding. Now, as you recall from the latch part of what we were doing, I had some trouble with this bar, with this knot about to split the wood, and so I ended up drilling and using thicker screws just in case that this was compromised. So I want to trim these off. To do that, I'm going to use a Dremel tool with a grind off bit, a heavy duty grinding wheel. So we're just going to trim it off, flush it with the board. After you get it cut off, then use the grinding wheel to smooth it. So there are 4 more screws on the back side of this that I'm going to grind off, and then I'll come back and wrap up. So that is our finished gate. The only thing that I'm going to do now, and I won't bother to show you, but that's just to take some paint and touch up where we cut holes and ground and so on. I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions or need any further details, please just leave me a comment in the comment section, and I'll do my best to help you out.